Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's event, which is Dance and the Poetics of Diaspora. My name is Dahlia Lee. I'm a writer and a dancer, and I'm currently pursuing a PhD in the Department of English at Penn with certificates from the programs in Cinema and Media Studies and the program in Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies. So first off, I just wanted to thank all of the people at Kelly Writers House who have helped make this event possible. So Jessica Lowenthal has been really amazing as a program coordinator, one of the easiest people I've worked with. Payments always go out quickly. Programming is great. Zach Hardiner is doing tech for us tonight. And then Ali Katz has helped out with the event, and Henry will be helping out with the Q&A tonight. So just to give a little bit of an overview of what Dance and the Poetics of Diaspora is. So I conceived of this event after last semester when I convened a similar kind of event called Dance and the Poetics of Fatigue. And so as I was talking to a lot of friends who work between dance and writing over the summer, I started realizing that there was a need communally to come to a different collective articulation of what it means to be doing dance in the current moment. And also what it means to be doing dance as somebody who's non-white, and to not have all of that activity always counterposed in relationship to whiteness. And so as I was thinking through this and reading like my own dissertation research, doing my own dance practice, I started thinking more about the word diaspora, which originally was used to refer to the Jewish diaspora. It's a word that implies scattering, the scattering of a people across distant lands, distant spaces, distant times. And so I thought diaspora would be a really interesting and useful way to try to think through the legacies of anti-colonialism, of non-whiteness, without having to ask that people stake an identity claim. So what does it mean to be part of a diasporic group, regardless of if that's from the Black diaspora, if that's from an Asian diaspora, if that's from an Indigenous diaspora? What does it mean to live a life where your kin and your history is always scattered? And so as I was thinking about that, I realized, oh, that's a very interesting way to approach what dance is, because dance, we presume, is a kind of specialized movement in the body around moving in a specific way. Our dance training teaches us to move our bodies in specific ways with specific effects. And so I've been thinking a lot recently about what it means to then be a dancing body that has already always been moved by diaspora and then goes to a movement form. What is it that diasporic bodies do when they dance that is more than just what shape your body makes or what kind of representation someone is asking you to do? And so my title, Poetics of Diaspora, is also a citation of the Caribbean philosopher Edouard Glissant's really beautiful text called The Poetics of Relation. And I'm still in the early stages of parsing out what exactly I think that is, but I'll read out a line that has been really evocative for me since last summer from The Poetics of Relation. So Glissant writes, "For through this experience made you, original victim floating towards the sea's abyss, an exception. It became something shared and made us, the descendants, one people among others. Peoples do not live on exception. Relation is not made up of things that are foreign, but of shared knowledge. This experience of the abyss can now be said to be the best element of exchange." So on that note, I want to start giving an introduction of the two people that I've brought in whose dance practices, whose writing and multidisciplinary practices are really special to me and who I've been really lucky to learn with and from via exchange. So just as a heads up for the structure tonight, there's going to be 20 minutes allotted to each one of us where we will be sharing something that's a bit like an artist presentation. So a way for you to get to know us beyond our names through our practice. And then within those 20 minutes, each of us will also share one of our own practices that we do in our art making. At the end, we'll reconvene for a little discussion amongst the three of us and also leave open time for questions from audience members. So as we're doing our presentations, if you have any kind of questions, just write them down and towards the end, put them into the chat link and they will get to us. So our first presenter is John Maria Gutierrez, who is a multidisciplinary actor, dancer, creator, and educator who performs on screen and stage nationally and internationally. John actually just got back yesterday from a tour in the Balkans. Originally from the small island of Manhattan, John was raised in a hood commonly known as Little Dominican Republic, or Washington Heights, and has spent most of their life on Lenape land. John combines acting, b-boy, and postmodern aesthetics with original music, singing, and experimental theater to unwind the complex urban disparity brought on by social and systemic failings. His work reaches for healing and dialogue within a world actively facing, reflecting, and surviving global colonization and systemic oppressions. As the first person in their family born in the US, John is carving out and balancing their own identity within their family, cultural history, and artistic expression. So John will present first, and then after that, we'll have a presentation from Ogendi Ude, who is a Nigerian-American dance artist, educator, and doula based in Brooklyn, New York. Her performances focus on Black femme legacies and futures, grief, and memory. She aims to incite critical engagement with embodied Black history as a means to imagine Black futurity. Her work has been presented at Issue Project Room, Recess Art, Brooklyn Arts Exchange, Dance Space Project, Gibney Center for Performance Research, Streb Lab for Action Mechanics, and for the for BAM's Dance Africa Festival. As an educator, she serves as head of movement for theater at Professional Performing Arts School. In collaboration with Rochelle Jamila Wilbon, she facilitates Afro Peach, a series of free dance workshops for Black postpartum people in Brooklyn. She is a 2021 Dance Web Scholar, 2021 Laundromat Project Artist in Residence, and 2021 Lower Manhattan Cultural Council Creative Engagement Grantee. She graduated magna cum laude with a degree in English from Princeton University. So John, that leads us to your 20 minutes. So go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Dahlia. Oh my God. First off, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever had my bio read back to me. So I'm like, I need to catch, I was like, all of a sudden that feels like a lot of pressure, who I am and what I do. But all right. Well, hello, whoever is out there. I thought today we could start a little bit with some breathing together. And so I think the first thing that I'll do is just take a couple breaths for myself and see where I'm at. See what my breath is doing. Just in and out. Whatever your pace is. And I'm just going to talk a little bit while you keep breathing. I guess one of the things that I love about Zoom is that it's actually gotten all of us to reflect on sharing space together in a very different way than we used to. We used to be able to share space in a room together with some kind of comfort around a closer distance, proximity to each other. But now I think that we have to practice like this kind of proprioceptiveness about sharing time together and covering a big span of distances, and that we can expand ourselves to fill in those big distances. And I like to imagine that one of the ways of doing that is by perhaps landing in the same breath together. And that if we can land in the same breath together, then perhaps we can be closer to being in the same space together. And so the first exercise I want to offer you is a breathing exercise, which I will lead. Now that you know what your breath is like today and in this moment, I will invite you, you will breathe in, and then we will breathe all of our breath out. I will use my hands to squeeze the breath out of my chest and in my belly, in my rib cage and in my back, to breathe it out as if my torso is a big barrel of breath. I will squeeze the barrel and empty all the breath. And then I will give us a count of 6 for us to breathe in for 6. We will hold our breath for 6, and we will breathe out for 6, and then breathe in a big breath again and repeat. Breathe in again, out, repeat. I'll guide you through this wherever you are. So we're breathing in and breathing out. Breathing out beyond the capacity we believe, squeezing our ribs and chest and breathing in for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, holding our breath for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Big breath in, big breath out. Again, emptying it all out. Squeezing our shoulders, our chest, our stomachs. Breathing in for 6. Holding for 6. And out for 6. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in again for 8. Holding for 8. And out for 8. Breathing in, breathing all that breath out. One more time, breathing in for 8. Holding for 8. Breathing out for 8. Breathing in, full breath. Breathing out. And now breathing back to just yourself. I'm just going to do a quick little movement thing, just where we're sitting at. I want you to just imagine that at the tip of your nose is a laser, whatever color you want. And across the room from you, you just want to draw a little figure 8 using your nose and this laser. And you can try to visualize this laser going across the room. And it can start really slow and then a really small and slowly making it just a little bigger. Carving out this figure 8 across the room from you. Letting your neck get more involved. Really carving out the edges of that figure 8. And as it gets a little larger and larger, allowing your shoulders and your chest to become a part of that figure 8. So that circle is becoming larger and larger. The figure 8 across the room. Maybe you imagine that laser going beyond your room and into your neighbor's apartment or house, or maybe the building across the street. And now, as you're seated, feeling your sits bone in your seat going in and out of the seat, into the right and into the left. And slowly hold, pause wherever you are, and reverse that figure 8. So whatever direction you were going in before, just try to imagine going back the other way. What do you notice as you're doing this in your space? What do you see with your eyes? What do you hear with your ears? I hear the creakiness of my chair. I see all the different lights that are on. I see some plants. And slowly letting that figure 8 dwindle back down to a smaller figure 8 in the opposite direction. Coming back to just your neck, just your head, Just your small laser figure 8 with your nose. Sweet. And now that we're back, we can close our eyes and just introduce a little hum, just for yourself, wherever you are, in whatever tone or pitch, whatever volume. And I want you to bring your hand to your face, to your cheeks, and feel the vibrations of your hum. Hum. Can you feel your humming in your cheekbones, in your jaw? Can you feel it under your eyes, above your eyelids? Can you feel it on your forehead? And go for a little exploration of your own vibrations, using your hands, using your palms, the back of your hands. Can you feel your vibration on your neck, under your head and your chin, and the back of your neck? And allow yourself to press. Can you feel it in your shoulders? Maybe give yourself a little massage, just little pats, little presses as you hum. Can you massage your body on the outside with your hands and maybe from the insides with the tone and the vibration? Can you explore your resonance in your chest? Initiate a movement using your voice from the inside. Where can you feel the vibrations and where can you not? Being kind of diligent with yourself about this exploration and not judging, but just noticing. What kind of information can we gather here? And breathing in and out, coming back to the screen with our eyes open. Last little exercise we'll do is if everybody can place their hands in front of their screens very wide and then close them up into a fist. And then again, wide, and then a fist. And we're going to do this over and over again for 10 seconds. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, as fast as you can. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I start to feel the burn in my forearms. Just shake it off. Shake off your shoulders. Shake your head from side to side. Wiggle a little. Thanks for joining me for that. Now I'm going to share a little bit of stuff that I've been working on creating. I'm going to share 2 5-minute excerpts, and something that's interesting to me about these 2 pieces are that one was created very much before this COVID time, and the other is created within, during, and you know, I guess post we have a vaccine now times. And I think that they're very much both about stuff that I've been going through and questioning, and I thought that I'd share them with you today. So, all right, well, here I go. So I'll just share, and then we can chat later, I guess.
Lo que ves, primera vez, no lo creo. love, love you. I do.
Eso es mío. Porque te fuiste y me dejaste. Si soy el macho de tu vida, mami. No soy culpable de que esa boda la impidiera tu familia. Voy para allá, aunque haya candel, porque sé que tú me quieres, mami. Yo soy el hombre que te enseñó a querer y te hizo sentir mujer.
And flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. Looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and they snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds. At all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. And you leave them laughing when you go. And if you can.
Okay. So that was one. And I'll share this other one. tierra no falló, la tierra no falló, el tiempo se acabó, el tiempo se acabó, se me ocurrió, se me ocurrió, se me ocurrió, se me ocurrió la oscuridad. No tiene sonrisa. Alma, alma santa, alma luz, alma fuerte, alma, alma, alma abierta, alma libre. Alma will be back later, too much going on at once. Alma's gone, sucked dry, trying to hide. Alma rota, maldita alma. Mis brazos arman, crean, levantan, creating and scraping the soul, the edges, soul strong, soul open. Soy? No. Soy no sé, no sé. Alma, alma, ¿dónde está alma? I am, don't know my soul as strongly as I thought. So there is no soul this year, there is no soul. The eyes can see empty rooms, empty streets. No hay alma, no hay alma, no hay alma en la calle. Entonces what? Then qué? These streets like nothing I've seen, not myself, no one. Nadie, nadie, sin alma. For those of you that don't know, alma means soul. All right. I think that concludes my time. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dahlia, for having me today. I'll see you later.
Okay, Ogimdi, you're up next.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Today, I would like to lead us through a little bit of an introduction, or also, hi, I'm Ogemdi. Dolly introduced me, and I'm a dark-skinned Black femme wearing purple earrings, and my hair is kind of frizzy above my head right now, and I'm in front of a gold shelf and a gold picture. But yeah, today I want to lead us through a couple of different movement exercises and ways that we can then reflect upon those exercises and then try those exercises again. And then I'll show a little excerpt of something that I'm working on right now. But currently I'm very interested in this idea of our private dances and taking our internal dances and our internal experiences and externalizing them and seeing if there is a decolonized approach to doing so. So in order for us to do this, I am inviting us all to take a little bit of time and space in our rooms, our homes, wherever we're coming from today, And when we are in that home, when we are the time and space that we're going to take is moving through 3 different dances. So I encourage you to choose 3 different songs if you want to work with music. I think that working with music is pretty essential to this. But you could just work with time. But for the first dance and the first song, I invite you to try an internal dance. Internal can be a little soliloquy to yourself. It can be the way that your brain kind of works when you're just hiding everything in and dancing inside your head. What is that internal dance for you? The second dance is going to be an external dance. An external dance can be a bit more conversational. It can be something that you approach with the people around you. Maybe it feels more like a partner dance. If there's actually someone in the space with you, maybe you dance with them. And then the third dance and the third song is going to be an eternal dance. So eternal could be you dancing to a presence that is not even present physically right now. Can be you dancing for the heavens, or for you to dance for something bigger than yourself. So I'm going to time us, give us about 2.5 minutes for each song. And I'll remind us that this is your internal dance, dance this. And then after that 2.5 minutes, I will get back off of mute and remind people to move on to their external, and then get back off mute and remind people to move on to their eternal. So I'll give this a second to queue up whatever music we would like to use. And I will mute yourself so you will not be subjected to whatever music it is that I play in my own space. All right. When you have that ready, go ahead, find a spot where you are that you would like to move, and let's take 2 minutes for our first dance, for our internal dance. All right, I invite you to find your next song and prepare for your external dance. Your external dance. What does dancing externally feel like for you? Maybe it's a bit more conversational, direct to another being in the room. What's your external dance? Take 2 minutes for that. Now we're gonna head into our eternal dance, finding a song for your eternal dance. All right, and bring that eternal dance to a close. I'm going to invite us to try a couple more things. Let's go back. Let's review what the internal dance was for us, what the external dance was, and what the eternal dance was. When reviewing it, going back, you can talk through it narratively. You can remind yourself of, oh, I started in that corner of the room and then my foot came out and I approached that other corner and then I heard a crash outside and then I moved like this. Or it could be you speaking towards whatever that experience felt like for you. Each of them, see what it's like to go through it by speaking internally, speaking externally, speaking eternally. So maybe that first internal one is you're just in your head talking to yourself, keeping it quiet. Then your external moment of review is speaking to someone else in the space or finding something in the space that you can attach yourself to in a conversational way. And then for that eternal, maybe you were speaking to the higher powers, maybe you are talking a little bit bigger and beyond yourself. What are these ways that you can then transform the way that you review the dances that you just went through? So I'll give us a minute for each of them. So a minute to talk to yourself about your internal, then I'll remind us of what the next thing is. So a minute, tell yourself what the internal was. All right, bring that one to a close. Let's go into the external experience. What was your external dance like? Take a minute to tell the space, someone else, to tell something about it. All right. Now for the last one, your eternal. What was your eternal dance like? And can you tell the space around you what that was like? Take a minute. All right. Thank you for joining me in that strange little exercise. I hope that you got in a few good dances. I'm going to show a short excerpt of a very, very, very early stage of something that I'm working on. To give a little bit of context to it, it's part of a longer solo project. And for this one, I was working with a few scores and then working with elements of how can I kind of enter into a private nostalgia while also being present with others who might not share the same nostalgia. If it's all right with you guys, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my 16th birthday party. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. So it was called a PRAVE, which stands for prom rave. And you might wonder why it had to be a prom and a rave at the same time. The rave was because me and my friends were really into Skins at that moment, the English version, not the American version, which wasn't really a show. But then also we really loved formal wear. Well, when you're 16, you don't have as many
options for formal wear. And so we decided to put together this party during my spring break because I didn't actually go to school with my friends at the time. And so I came back for spring break and me and my best friend Freya put together these cards that were made of glitter. And it's like when you put the glue all over the card and then you pour the glitter and then all you can see is what the glitter left behind, but no little pieces fall. So Freya put together the invitations, and then it was time to pass them out at the high school. And it's always fun to go to a school that you don't go to, especially to do something that is like on the MTV show My Super Sweet 16. And so I went, very excited. To give out these invitations that actually said two different things on them. One was for people who I was inviting early to have a dinner. The other was for people who were just coming to the general party. So the VIPs, day of, they arrived at like 6:30. Cooked the things that I felt like I was best at cooking at that time, which was curry chicken and red lobster cheddar biscuits. And so my friends came through, we had dinner. The people who were coming early So the people who came early got to have the prom photo type experience before we went into the basement. As all amazing high school parties happen in the basement. But I don't fully remember all the things that happened from there. But not actually for the reasons why we forget things that happen at adult parties, just because I had a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I actually just I was having a lot of fun. And so the bits that I remember include the birthday cake saying happy birthday Ogle instead of Oge because they read the exclamation point as an L.
All right. Sorry, I'm just having a moment with my Zoom being strange. Okay, sorry. I couldn't see anything because I hit the panel, so I didn't know how to get the screen back for a second. All right. That work, I don't really know where it is right now. All I know is that it's at my 16th birthday party and I was blasting some of my favorite music from when I was 16 on my headphones that whole time while I was speaking. So I could not hear anything that I was saying when I was saying it. And at some point I took off the headphones and shared in that sound with the audience as well. So those are just some transitions that perhaps were not clear there, but that I hope pull apart into this place of where can I open into the internal in front of everyone and what elements of the internal need to be shared in order for something to even pull on someone else, to even find like some sort of latch without it having to be a complete collapse with the other person's experience. So that's what I have for now. If you want to take it, Dahlia.
Great, thanks so much, Ogie. That was so beautiful. And I think that actually transitions well into the exercise that I wanted to share, which is a combination of a little bit of movement, but also sort of contemplative introspection and writing. So I actually formalized this today in the afternoon. I realized like, oh, this is kind of how I write poems or essays. So let me see if I can bring this out. And so this exercise is called Desire and the Room. I don't know if it's colon, but the words that are also associated with it are wanting, shifting, filling, shifting, giving, caring. So what I want you to do is to find some kind of writing utensil. That writing utensil can be your keyboard or the computer. Sometimes I like to move to more physical writing. So this can be a pencil and piece of paper. And what I like about that is there are moments where the expressions or information that I receive don't quite find their way into language, or I feel like language might actually push them into a form that they're not ready to go into yet. So the pencil and paper method gives me the option of working with the plane of the field in a different way. Sometimes I doodle, sometimes I just make dots. Those can be representational or they're notations. When I make dances, sometimes I'll use those as scores. So what I'll be doing is guiding you through a series of sort of movement exercises and writing. So let's start off with some writing and take 3 deep breaths. See if there's a way that you can detach yourself from the visual experience of looking at the screen, so that what's going on is that our presentation at this moment arrives to you as an auditory message and voice. So the questions I'd like you to think about and maybe write out for yourself are, what do you want and where are you? What do you want? Where are you? As you're feeling out that question of what it is that your desire is going towards and where it is that you are coming from or leaving, I want you to perhaps close your eyes, or if you're fine keeping your eyes open, that's fine too. Find a movement and let this movement be really small. As you're finding this movement, try to locate where it is in your body with as much detail as possible. Your body can be a really expansive thing. Depending on how you're tuned into it, that location of the movement in the body might be anatomical. It might be energetic. It might even be temporal. As you start tuning into that movement, begin to magnify it, whatever that means for you. As the movement slowly begins to magnify, pay attention to what is going on to your body. What are its exterior envelopes and edges? What is expanding? What is contracting? What opens? What closes? What breaches? What seeps? What invites? What repels? With the sense of your body's envelopes and its apertures and closures, begin to magnify your movement until you can feel it fill whatever space that you're in. Using this movement and its expansion and the ways that your body's envelopes can magnify, diminish, or contour the feeling of that movement, find the contours of the space that contain you. This is where it might be helpful if your eyes are closed. Understand what is your envelope as it meets the space that you're in. What is that volume and that boundary when you don't rely on your eyes to get this information? As you feel the largeness of the movement, tune back into your body and understand what happens when your movement magnifies large. What's going on with the body's multiple envelopes? What's the relationship between your body's envelopes, the space that holds all of that movement? And what is that movement's relationship to how you stitch bodily envelope with spatial contour? If it's not too much information, as you're tuned into the various forces that move, go back to that small movement and try to identify where that movement came from. Did someone teach you this movement? Did you see someone else do it and now you're mimicking it? Did you notice it somewhere in the world? Does it come from an image? Does it come from a text? Is the movement sourced from human locomotion, animal movement, botanical movement, seasonal movement? As you begin to find the answer to this question, figure out how it is that this movement source arrives to you through the various kinds of envelopes that we've been attending to. What is the relation of the source of your movement to the smallness of your movement before you magnified it? What is the duration of its beginning and its end? As you understand the source and magnitude of movement, see if something populates the various kinds of spaces that have been opened. Who else and what else exists in the relationship between the smallness of your movement, the largeness of its source, and the various volumes and sizes that the envelopes between those things create? When you begin to get a sense of the population of movements, begin to open your eyes, bringing that movement to a sense of stillness. When you feel ready to enter into writing, answer the following questions. Has your desire changed, and do you want differently? Take about a minute to start getting some answers to those questions. If, again, writing feels hard, I love doing figural drawings, jotting things down, annexing ideas into my own body, seeing if, for example, there is a really dense idea that I can't think through. Maybe I can put it on my earlobe and return to this tomorrow. So as that knowledge finishes synchronizing with your body, I'm going to read out a piece of writing that I did recently that goes to why I've been having a really hard time entering the space of what maybe Ogemdi calls the external dance. Enveloped by humidity, mosquitoes, and the boom of the DJ pre-Columbian's music atop a historic Shaker Mountain turned intentional Quaker community, I think I began to understanding what people meant when they said, white people have no rhythm. A few years back, one of my closest friends, a white woman who first introduced me to the more open world of experimental dance, told me about an article she had read explaining why white people were such bad dancers. I never found the article, a blog entry, I think. The logic of the article, as my friend related to me, was that white cultures of emotional repression lead to tight psoas muscles that have a hard time undulating. The beat gets cut around the body's midsection. Because the feet standing on the ground cannot reach the upper half of the body, It is the mind, the head, and the eyes that engine movement instead. You relate to the crowd by seeing, not through the feel of stomp on ground. This mountain rave was attended by many contemporary dancers whose training, I could tell from watching, included Africanist movement idioms filtered through Limon, Horton, release technique, or perhaps even more direct transmission in West African dance classes, hip hop, street jazz, or simply mimicking the popular Black social dances that circulate in a 2020s mediascape. I had seen these dancers stretch on other occasions, and by no means did I see particularly tight psoas muscles. This rave was part of a queer utopian-inflected dance gathering to which I had offered BIPOC-centric concept consultation. After COVID-19 social distance protocols, it was not emotional repression, but emotional overexpression that saturated the space. I have been gender transitioning the last few years. More recently, estrogen has begun reshaping my body. Between corporeal change, psychoanalysis, and a different hormonal composition generating new emotional schemas, I notice a different personal relationship to gazes. I am more easily a fetish now, whether that is the sexual fetishism of the male gaze, white, Black, brown, Asian, or otherwise, the fetishism of the well-meaning liberal, whose guilty conscience my favorite might expiate, or the fetishism of the culturista looking for the next edgy thing to hitch a few years of clicktivism or snapshots to. As certain gendered attributes I had always thought immutable began falling away, I found my dancing body leaving the worlds of ballet, modern, and contemporary dance where I had first found it and straying instead towards the nightclub. In the summer of 2019, at another queer utopian gathering, this time at Ponderosa in East Germany, two queer sex workers taught me pole dancing and a different way to understand gazing as feeling, touching, and holding. What would it mean for our dancing to intend not towards the lusty appetites of the presumed male gaze, but the layering of a different kind of sensual desire between bodies that are usually over-objectified? This kind of looking can hold because it intimately knows what needs caress. This utopian promise exists under very particular conditions that usually are not met for me. The world of pole dancing reveals the many casualized ways that sexual and libidinal labor exist without recompense, and how and what kind of bodies end up paying the toll. Sexual violence, paternalistic control, projective stigma, and appropriation are but a few of the ways extraction functions around the pole dancer's frequently racialized, feminized, and lower-class body. As much as I desire dancing to be a kind of energetic exchange, the reality of what my body means for certain eyes that I cannot and do not wish to control or think much about makes money and payment a good mediating barrier. Whenever I feel that I would be dancing for and not with, I do not dance unless I have been paid or am intentionally training in an uncomfortable atmosphere. If the hand cannot adequately feel, the least it can do is finance. The DJ Pre-Columbian makes up one half of the Philly-based duo Seltzer that periodically throws queer brown and Black-centered dance parties in New York and Philly. Pre-Columbian's name harkens to a time before colonization in the Americas. What would the world sound and feel like had colonization not marred where and how we live today? Of course, there is a fantastic element to Pre-Columbian's proposal and a subtle listening needed to hear how sound responds. The beats in Pre-Columbian's music indicate the presence of the Black diaspora. The electronic sounds of the DJs signal the trans-Pacific Afro-Asian history of the Japanese-manufactured TR-808 drum machines that arrived to African-American communities who were birthing techno in the 80s on the unceded lands of the Anishinaabe that we now call Detroit. These are but a few of the memories, counter-histories, and mesh interracialities scored into a beat for the dancing body to find. I consent to Pre-Columbian's racial fantasy, even as I ardently refuse other racial fantasies, like colorblindness or liberal equality, or even democracy. I understand the call of Pre-Columbian's music to be one that asks, what might the uncolonized dance floor feel like? What kind of body exists alongside, before, and after that body has been objectified by its racial marking, captured by the colonizing gaze of whiteness? I didn't dance that night, though. It was a predominantly white dance floor. The rhythms, gazes, bodies, and dances I most desired to be with would not arise there. So that's my little sharing. And of course, we've gone a little bit over time. I forgot to budget in the introductions. It's taking up time. So I had originally planned for the three of us to have a conversation and then move into Q&A. But I think what we can do is intersperse the audience questions that have already arrived with some reflections or thoughts you might have for each other. For those in the audience, please keep submitting your questions. I'll keep an eye on the Zoom chat. So the first question we've got is from Zelda, who asks, when dancing, how do you find the relationship between your body and the space around you to be functioning?
Well, I guess I can, I don't know who the question was directed at specifically, but I think doing Ogemdi's exercise with internal, external, and eternal, when I got to the external and the reflection section, I started thinking a lot about, I was like, I feel so much more comfortable in the external space. And at least for me, being in relationship with my body and other things is where a lot of my dancing comes from. Actually, I think that my dance practice began with an acting practice, and I think that my school of acting is often about that acting is reacting. And so for me, I think that dancing is also a way of reflecting something that I encounter or something that's encountering me. And so I do feel that when I'm dancing, I'm always in relationship to something, even if a kind of intangible idea manifests itself as something tangible in a space, or an idea that is now come to life that I am relating to. So that's my version of that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, especially after doing your exercise, John, and then doing Oge's exercise. Like, I actually came to dancing much later in life, and I came to it from a poetry practice. So I ran out of language and I just needed something else to generate some writing. And I find the internal dance to be really easy to find, and also the eternal dance. And the hardest space for me is the external dance. And maybe you can tell from the writing I shared, but I often encounter the space of the external as a place where you have to negotiate a lot of potential danger. And so the relationship I have between space is, I think I'm often looking for like what is actually pleasurable in space and trying to bring that into the internal dance, and then reserving that kind of internal dance, which is so much about pleasure, for the right kind of witness. And so I am someone who has a really hard time doing set choreography, because I'm like, why I can't do this dance, because dance is always relational for me. And I don't know who I'm dancing for. What if I would like to refuse a dance for some people and give a dance to other people? So maybe that's my relationship to space, is I'm always trying to figure out like what kind of looking is filling a space, and what kind of possibilities does that have for extending what my dance is doing beyond the moment of its visualization.
I feel like my answer might start to intersect a little bit with the next question, Dahlia. So maybe we can present the next question that was directed towards me from Henry.
Yeah, that's great. So the question from Henry is, for Ogemdi, what is it like working through a new project in a public setting like you did in your video? And how do you share an intimate experience with an audience?
Yeah. So in this, when we were talking about how the body and space is functioning, I was thinking of, okay, well, the space that I'm first reacting to right now is both that public space, or is that public space? I found it in this moment, like the recording that we did, I was so horribly anxious that day, and I haven't been that anxious when performing in, I don't know how long. And granted, it was the first time I was showing something of my own publicly for like first time in over 2 years. So that was those were the stakes. But there's also the element of, I think perhaps it's just very encoded in me as a Nigerian Aries, but the way that I move is really marked by people watching me. And I dance differently when people watch me. And I quote unquote think I dance better when people watch. I think if someone's giving me choreography, then I dance worse when people watch me. If I'm dancing my own dance, then I dance better when people watch me. And so there's something about Dahlia, when you were talking about like how, like, what are the dynamics of the space, or what is the space expecting of you? I think that there's so much fuel that can be provided by public space, and there's so much earnestness that I think we want to offer back in our dancing. You know, we kind of start to both be really interested in this vulnerability of our body, this openness of our body, and then we want to fill it up by filling up the people around us. And so I find myself really wanting to share a dance, really wanting to give a dance, but at the same time knowing that the only place that I can really give from is from this like weird little like boulder energy I get, where like I dance like this. And like the jokes with my friends are always I dance like I'm constipated, like I just get so inside. But it feels like that's where, you know, where things can get stored up, or where energy can fly. And it's also me, as if I'm accepting the charge of the space around, really trying to like work it into something, and then like having these little spurts that come out because I'm then accepting that charge. So I hope I'm looking at the question, that's why I'm looking now, sorry, of the public setting and the intimate experience with the audience. Yeah, I think it's that element of like charging up and then like shooting that energy out in a variety of ways.
Yeah, I mean, that's, when you describe it that way, I think because we're in a space that's both poetry and dance, and I think all of us are very multidisciplinary. One thing I'm often trying to think about is like, so how do I account for what dance is as a kind of medium of art practice that isn't just like, I'm moving my body, or I'm making shapes, or drawing in the air with my body? And one of the things I started to come up with is the experience you describe, Oge, which is that dance as a medium means that the dancer really has to become a medium, also in like the funny spiritual sense of the word. It's about like being able to receive particular kinds of energies in the moment with a body, and not to reflect it back exactly as it is. It is mediated by each dancer's body, like how they have experiences of their own body, what kind of techniques of performance allow them to project an energy outside, or to respond to an energy input that they receive by looking at like an internal source that generates something and then exuding it in a way. Yeah, it's just one thought I had.
I think also the like just off that, like it I think a debate that I've had I think since I began dancing, I had a hard time calling myself a dancer. And just kind of, I think because of, I guess, what I thought a dancer was, or the kind of dancers I was hanging around, I was like, I don't know if I actually want to be associated with these people, like how they think of like what art is, or what they're thinking of like what dance is. And I come from primarily like a hip hop background. And so for me, I was like, dancing is something I do at the club. And I felt like what I was doing in the studio was learning movement, and like learning like a technique which kind of codified my body into moving in a certain way. And I think as I've gotten older, there's also this thing of like, when do you really start dancing codified movement versus just kind of, you know, like the difference between, I think acting and reciting something. It's like, do you really feel the words? Do you have an opinion about the words that or are you just kind of saying them out loud? And I think that that's part of like the dance thing for me, of like intimate experience with an audience too, and something that I loved about your piece, Ogemdi, was that it did this thing that I love about what I like to do with dance is, that it's about moving the audience, and being moved. And so I think when you started talking about 16 years old, like age puts us in a kind of dance. And I kind of went with you there, and then I felt like we were in a duet of like, well, where was I at when I was 16? And the anxiety that you had in your body reflecting through your movement brought me there too, and gave me this kind of anxiety as well, where I then felt like I was part of the dance with you, because I can also relate to what that feeling might be like, or what that giddiness might be like. And I think that this dance between language and speaking and movement then allows for this kind of, it's like you reveal something vulnerable about yourself that we believe as your story and as something that you're manifesting. And then we join you in that, and we move into a different space that is part of our space, but is now part of your space. And I think that that's like one of the incredible things about performance, and the most intimate thing that like, I feel like an audience doesn't even realize sometimes that it's happening, that now they're no longer just themselves. They're like themselves as a part of you. And I love that. And it happened while I was watching your work. So thanks for that transportation.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder on that kind of thing of the dancer's body when you have those really amazing experiences when you're watching a dancer and suddenly you end up somewhere. Like, you're right, John, that like the dancer's body somehow expands itself and is able to carry the audience somewhere. And that somewhere can be like an intimate experience, that somewhere can be directed towards something else. And the question I often have is, when I am dancing and I am trying to carry an audience with me, who else is already there that I carry with me, and how do they or don't they enter into the space? Because that was one of my resistances when I started dancing to calling myself a dancer, was similarly like I was with commercial dancers in London, and then sometimes also conservatory trained concert dance people who wanted to move in the experimental dance world. And so much of those experiences of dancing carried weird histories of the body, where there was all this like objectification going on, that like people just had no language to talk about. And so I really resisted calling myself a dancer, because I was like, I don't really want to dance with them, because how is that going to make my body vulnerable, but also the kinds of other bodies that I carry with me that are not just mine? Like, I don't really want to subject them to that. So that was my way of asking the question of like, who do you carry with you when you dance, in addition to the audience? And is there an interaction between the people you already carry into the dance and the people who watch the dance that you then carry along with you?
I love this question. I think a lot about Jose Esteban Munoz speaking about like queer folks are always carrying the dead on their backs with them. And that feels like a very like an always type of state. And I often am thinking about death, and I'm always making dances about death in some way. And so I feel like I'm constantly considering the presence of that, but where death also, how death lies in like all of these different areas and crevices. I'm thinking a lot, John, about the way you had your dance in front of the mirror, and then also when you slipped into the shoes, but first, hands first. And so those second presences that we got, and whatever that whatever those presences kind of elicited, whether it felt like, oh, I get to see two of you at some point in some way, like I get to see the other way that you're experiencing yourself separated from yourself. But then I also get to see there's something about turning something upside down that makes it feel like another person or a different person. And then you would come back up and you would be a different person again. And I thought that that was so, I was so excited by those. And I think that we're always inviting in these other presences, and we're always trying to physicalize another presence, because I really don't think that we ever want to dance by ourselves completely. I think it's kind of impossible to dance by yourself, or I know it's impossible to dance by yourself completely. And I think an element of whiteness is this desire to clear the space and dance, because the dance needs to be like articulated and it needs to be, I've been thinking about all day, Dahlia, what you wrote, because I got to read it earlier. And I tried to do the thing of like, I latched up my belly and I tightened myself up in the studio today. And I tried to like bounce, or I tried to like step my knees or step my feet and like not have a shockwave go up through me. But I think that desire to like catch or to restrain, but to also clear space so that things can work out in a specific way, which like white supremacy really asks for things to be planned and to work out in a specific way. Therefore, this idea of clearing in order to have a dance, I think is very necessary. But I think particularly, I don't know, I think that, I don't even know what to call this in this moment. Like, I think that perhaps I would say folks of the diaspora, but I would also say like folks that are, I don't know what like language I'm trying to put to this, but they're like, we're more reactive, like we're very reactive, and a dance is very reactive, and we exist in effort for others around us to exist. We don't get to exist by ourselves. And so I think therefore the dance also cannot exist by itself. It is a reaction to whatever dance has been danced towards you or put in you. It's the way that like, it's the way, okay, these are the remnants of like the last hug that I got, or this is the way that the laugh that I had earlier today is resonating through my body. I don't clear it and I don't take it out in order to dance another dance. I have to like just keep on following that thread that will then be carried on by someone else who then follows that thread and dances that dance with me.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I find often when I'm dancing in the way that feels most aligned with me, I actually feel like I'm either fighting to keep a dance, or I am trying to protect a space for a dance, or I'm trying to produce a space for a kind of dance to exist. Because I'm in a space where I'm like, I can tell the movement is trying to be coerced into something that is cleared, but that clearing isn't neutral. That clearing is made so that a particular type of person can come in and direct. And so I feel like part of dancing for me is trying to keep a lot of different kinds of space super open and to not smash space. But
I think I was, yeah, I was like, I think I was very, in my training in school, I was very impacted by Mary Overly's like viewpoints. And so I think in a very postmodern way, it's like I was just like, you know, my brain has been co-opted into this way of thinking of space, time, you know, gesture, all of these different elements, including myself, as having equal value. And so I think that the way that I've come to think of it, it's like I have these like b-boy sensibilities and like these breaking hip hop sensibilities where I'm like, I'm from New York, born and raised, you know, like immigrant family. I'm a similar background to hip hop's background and where it comes from, and like poverty and of kind of like the dirt and hand on the concrete. But then also have this way of thinking about movement in the world in a way that like space and time aren't more value, light, gesture, tracking, like blocking. It's all kind of like things that can be shifted for me. And so in that way, I feel like, you know, it's like this idea of inverted, like I always thought if I'm a dancer and I'm engaged in movement, then I should be able to like turn on my right foot as easily as I can on my left hand. And that like for me, it's like this idea of walking on our feet is just like a foot stand, in the way that if I turn upside down, we think of it as a handstand. And I've just had this way of thinking that it's like I can make a dance just on my back, and that's a perfectly good dance. Like, because it's like we're so used to seeing hands on or dances on feet, but like why? You know, it's like it's just a decision that we've made, an aesthetic decision about like what we find value in. And I think that that's maybe a way to survive. Like, you know, it's maybe a way to exist in a world that that pins me into a kind of racial category or ethnic category. And so I'm like, well, that's not all that makes me who I am. The same way that like your modern technique or your ballet technique or Limon technique or Graham technique isn't what makes you a dancer. I think that it's like I want to have a playing field that anything is possible, and we can kind of shift and move those things, and really like just whatever elements make up your ideas and where you're coming from is what your dance is, what you have to contribute to the field of dance per se. But maybe it's a naive and optimistic view on things, but yeah, I think maybe it's part of the b-boy sensibility too, of like the idea to conform is impossible for me. I think when I pursue it, I feel terrible. And therefore I feel like I pivoted at one point and was just like, I can't do that. So I'm just not going to try to do it anymore.
Great. I wish we could keep having this conversation publicly. So, okay, John and I are in a collaboration that I'm tentatively calling Technologies of the Open Boat. And so I think we'll probably be able to come back in the spring and show you all a little bit what it is that we come up with. But it's 7:35 now, so I don't want to hold the Kelly Writers House people over too long. But thank you so much, Ogemdi. Thank you, John. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Ali. And thank you, everybody who tuned in. This is such a wonderful opportunity to share movement with each other and to share thoughts about movement. And I'm looking forward to the next time that we can do it. Bye.